Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, D-Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire NTR Network at the NTR Network. You found us, don't lose us. Subscribe in the iTunes Store. Subscribe anywhere podcasts are given away for absolutely free. And also, leave that 5-star review. Not a 4-star. That's we're not going to read. I'm not going to read your 4-star review. But if you leave a 5-star review, I will read anything that's written, including but not limited to compliments, which I don't take very well, or insults about my teams, which I take very well because I know who I am. We're creeping up on episode 100. It's recorded until the 24th of June. There will not be a show next Monday because I'm taking that week off. It was one of those things where we looked around like, we haven't taken a legitimate vacation in 3 years. Like, you go like a wedding weekend somewhere or a bachelor party, but like just us to go relax with like no real purpose. That hasn't happened in 3 years. So we're taking some time and we're away from it all. And I might do something before the week's up because 99 is the best number to leave on and come back with an 100th episode that will never live up to the hype that I could hopefully have it in my head. But it's been a hell of a run. And how best to spend episode 98 than with our editor-in-chief, someone I talk to more than anyone in the world besides my wife. What up, Kriss?
I just thought about it. We're literally going to talk for like 3.5 hours a day. On a Sunday in June, 4 hours, just me, since 10 o'clock this morning, just me and you. The fuck is wrong with us, yo?
It's so funny because people know we do this, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are real chatterboxes in real life." I'm like, sometimes. Like I'm an extroverted introvert, so I do good in group settings, and I can do that stuff. But as soon as she's like, people would never suspect how little you speak in our home.
So the week, like 2 weeks ago, I was doing this class for work, and it required us. I was happy because it was right around 10 minutes from my house. So I get out of my 1.5-hour drive to work, and I'm literally, but it's a class that requires me to speak to people in class all the time. Like, can't really be on my phone, can't really have my laptop open, can't get away from people. Right. Literally, like, I walked in on Wednesday, and they literally had their classroom set up into like a U shape, so no desk, just everybody in a U shape, and I'm like, good God. By the middle of the week, I was more tired than I have ever been driving 1.5 hours to work every day for a week because I was required to talk to people. I had some people that actually worked in my office too were like, I didn't know you talked.
I didn't know you could speak.
Right. And I'm like, yes, because I don't like to. Not to you all. But yeah, doing this shit is fun. I can do this for hours.
It's so wild because someone was like, do you want to go do something today? I said, actually, I have to work on the house. They're like, we'll just do that in the morning. I go, I got to talk to my friend Kriss for 4 hours. And I couldn't, and I mean, what else can you really say? It's like I have to talk to Kriss about sports and Transformers and X-Men for 4 hours.
Oh, that's the other thing too about today. It's like it's a weird, it all kind of relates, but then it doesn't because it's just like, wait, you talked about Transformers, sports wrestling, and then Uncanny X-Force. Like, what the fuck is? There's no rhyme or reason to anything we do. I'm sorry.
The lesson here is we're really, really good at this. Anyway. I do want to start off the show. You mentioned wrestling. Thank you for the segue. We lost Big Van Vader this week, and he had congenital heart failure, and he passed away on Wednesday. And I know there's a lot of people who say, he's just another wrestler. Vader was a 400-pound man who was the first person I saw not wearing a mask do a moonsault, which is a backflip off the top turnbuckle onto his opponent. Vader once lost an eye in a match against Mick Foley. He popped it back in and kept wrestling. He probably made my favorite wrestler because I grew up with Sting Mark. And those battles of Vader versus Sting where the monster wasn't just this unstoppable force, this immovable object, but when you watch the hero overcome that and when he sold for their comebacks and made them look like $1 million, you believed in the hero that much more. So tip of the cap to Big Van Vader, once the heavyweight champion on 3 different continents. And if you've never thought about it outside of maybe some of the limited exposure he got in WWF, I encourage you to go look at his New Japan run. He came in the first night in New Japan, Kriss, and he beat Inoki. Inoki hadn't lost in like 3 years. Yeah. He beat Inoki. They rioted in the Tokyo Dome, and New Japan wasn't allowed back in the Tokyo Dome for years. His very first night there. He was the Gaijin monster. When I think of my conscience, I hear the voice of Kevin Conroy from Batman or Peter Cullen from Transformers. When I think of fear, I think of Vader. And I didn't think fear could die. But in happy wrestling news, I want to talk to you about someone who used to run the octagon in the UFC, Ronda Rousey. Now, you talk about Ronda Rousey's legacy in the UFC. It's very, very well established. But if you look at it on a strictly paper standpoint, she was 6-2. Her total MMA fight record is 12-2, but those are on lower promotions, the other 6 wins. Where do you think Ronda Rousey's story kind of is going to be? Because now she's going to the Hall of Fame of UFC. Is it going to be that she was a pioneer? Is it going to be that she's the first, or will she still be remembered as the best?
In UFC, I think it's weird. I think she can end up as still being remembered as one of the best, solely because while those other wins were in other promotions, it was Strikeforce, and that was what women's MMA was.
It was the limitations of the time.
Right. And so she's always been there. When you think of, because even now that she's gone, women's MMA, especially that, I think she was the bantamweight champ. I always get the weight classes mixed up. But even that belt is not being dominated like it was. Like, there are only 2 women that really dominated: Kriss Cyborg and Ronda Rousey. That's it. There aren't any other names that really stayed there for as long of a time and had as many fights and as many dominating fights, like finishes.
But as women's MMA evolves and kind of the next steps are taken, will she be kind of viewed as, some of the modern fight fans looking at Chuck Liddell kind of like as at the time, yeah, great, but someone who probably couldn't translate to what the fight game has turned into?
Probably.
Is that informed by how it ended with her?
I don't think so. I think you brought up a good point by comparing her to Chuck Liddell. Like, yeah, to the Twitter audience, the people who only understood Ronda Rousey from that last bit, yeah.
Okay.
But for actual fans, I think it will go more the route of the Chuck Liddell. But because Chuck Liddell was basically only good at one thing, he was a good striker. He had good takedown defense, but he was a striker.
Right.
And that era of men's MMA. Yeah, that too. And that era of MMA was basically dominated by, you were good at one thing.
Right.
And then this freak of nature Anderson Silva showed up.
Changed everything.
Who could strike and beat you on the ground.
Anderson Silva was like the beginning of X-Men, the speech about evolution taking a step.
Right. But then after him, and this is why I'm so mad that this guy has fucked his legacy up so much. Then there was John Jones.
Mm-hmm.
John Jones came in. Yes, he has a wrestling background, but he was a guy he was that first generation of guys who came in and they were learning it all. Because it used to be you came in, you learned one discipline really, really well, became really expert at that. Then you slowly learned the other disciplines, right? Because even with Anderson Silva, I think he got his black belt that time. I can't remember who he choked at. Was it? I don't think it was after the Sonnen fight, but whatever. But I think that's what's going to happen with not just Kriss Cyborg, but also Ronda Rousey, where they were good at really one thing. Like Kriss Cyborg, if you don't know who Cyborg is, then that when people comment on Ronda Rousey and they don't know who Cyborg is, I'm like, just shut the fuck up about women's MMA. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Cyborg is the striker, and she just dominates other women. And then Ronda Rousey was the grapple person. She was basically the, if you will, the Gracie, the female Gracie, right? Mm-hmm. Come in and take your arm. Yeah, she had a couple of knockout wins, but it was mostly her between her judo and her jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
But she was really bad at stand up.
Really, the trick was you could take her down, but once you took her down, you were in trouble.
Exactly. And I think that's where her legacy ends at, because it's not because of the way she ended. It just what happened was, and let's be honest here, what happened with her? What happened was women's MMA just evolved. It's the same thing that happened with Chuck Liddell.
Exactly.
men's MMA evolved to people then realize that they can't just be good at one thing, but be great at one thing, but be good at everything and have a full stack. And for the longest time, women's MMA didn't have that because, and there's sexism in that women don't get to train as well and don't get training partners like men do. Didn't get the focus. There weren't a lot of people out there, and I think that what Ronda Rousey did was she opened up the door to get more women into there.
And that's the same thing you'd say about the Chuck Liddell generation is that people said, I don't know there's money in fighting, and then as soon as they found out there was money, then you pour more money, and now you have a better trained, you have a better staffed training camp. You can't just have a striking coach. You can afford to have the disciplined coaches who, while maybe your background's in one thing, you can still develop as a fighter as you prepare for these fights.
Well, I think that, and I think that's something that's we're talking about the fight game right now, but it's the same thing that's happening with like things like basketball. When you look at what people talk about the freak of nature that LeBron James is, but when you look at what he does to be that freak of nature, that's what's going to change the next generation of basketball. Right. When people realize, okay, this is not just something I do as a job. It is literally my job. My job is to make my body into this unstoppable machine. And that's what you started seeing. You saw that with, and again, I think that you're seeing the evolution with women's MMA right now, where you're getting there are a lot of good fights. You're not getting the attention that they got when Ronda Rousey was there, but there are a lot of good fights that are happening right now because these women are getting the boost in training that didn't happen before. And so you're seeing these great striking matches. You're seeing these great grappling matches. You're seeing these other women come in there. And I think that's going to be Ronda Rousey's legacy of basically opening that door. Not saying she was the first woman MMA fighter. She wasn't. I mean, there were a lot of other good MMA fighters female MMA fighters out there who did a really good job. But she was the first one to get Dana White to overlook his sexism and be like, I can make money off of this.
She's the first one to turn the fighter into dollar signs.
Right. Because again, she's not the first fighter to, again, people always laugh about how, she lost and she left. She's not the first fighter to do that. There were plenty of fighters who did that. People forget, I can't remember I can't remember, was it Cyborg she lost to? But Gina Carano got her ass whooped and never came back.
No, she appeared, and then all of a sudden she was in DVD movies.
Well, because the other thing too, it's like, people start realizing again that there also isn't a lot of money in the fight game. It's much, I mean, unless you're at the top, and even then in the MMA fight game, it's still not a lot of money compared to like, boxing, which is
it's almost like if you won a boxing match and never come back.
So Gina Carano was like, okay, I can continue to get my ass whooped, or I can take the fame I have, and while it's still hot, go somewhere else and make a shit ton of money there. She ain't been back, and I don't fucking blame her.
Everything is wrestling, brother.
Yeah. So.
She was hot. She decided to take the show on the road, man. And so that's one of the things I want to talk about because I know you don't follow wrestling like I do. Yo, Ronda's really fucking good.
I can see that though.
Like but the thing is, and it's something I was talking. So I was on the PW Torch deep dive yesterday with Rich Fan, and we talked about the money behind the money and how the world's changing in WWE because of the new Fox and NBC deals. But something we touched on was Ronda Rousey has come in as a rookie, and people like a lot of hyperbole. It's wrestling. When I say you've never seen anything like this, Kurt Angle is always the story that gets told about how he came in and latched on immediately. His first few matches were amazing, but his first few matches were in fucking Memphis in front of no televisions. Ronda's first two matches have been at WrestleMania, and she semi-mained the main event this past weekend. Kriss, she's not great on the mic yet. I'll give her that. She's not a great compelling promo, but because people know her coming in, she almost doesn't have to be. What she brings is that level of realism to in the ring, and plus, and I've always said this, the real athletes are almost better natural wrestlers than people who want to be wrestlers, and what I mean by that is, it's easy to sell a punch in the face if you've been punched in the face.
Yeah. It's
easy to sell these slams of this has happened to me. This sucked.
Mm-hmm. And you gotta remember, yeah, it's like she grew up with that. Like that is literally being slammed into a mat. You gotta remember, she's a judo player.
Yeah, she was a judo.
So being slammed into a mat, because that's something too. It's not like she's just like a boxer that came in that did this. Right. And I think you brought up Kurt Angle again. These are people that are used to being slammed on a mat. Because as somebody who has been slammed on a mat before, It is not the same.
It's
If
not.
any, it is not the same as getting punched in the face. It is not the same as being thrown into a fence, a chain link fence. It is not. Like, being thrown on the mat sucks.
Particularly willingly, like these guys do. It's so funny. I watched a documentary about Seth Rollins' return from his knee injury, and he said that when his first day back training in the ring, he took a back bump and was like, "Oh my God, why did we do this?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like it's been 6 months since he bumped. He had to get back that bumping callus.
Yeah, it just is. It's like, but that's any combat sport. I mean, let's be honest here. Okay, wrestling is a combat sport. Any combat sport is like that. Like, I've been dreading trying to get back into the gym and start training Muay Thai again, and I'm like, yo, that first time I kick a bag is gonna hurt so much.
When I wrestled in high school, I didn't wrestle. The only time I didn't wrestle was the fall when I played football.
Yeah.
And I remember the first practice of this, because it's just, I'm in shape, it's just going to hurt. Like the first time I hit the mat, it's going to hurt. And I'll be fine. I'm just not going to like it. I
love when I watch, when I used to coach, I used to love watching a person come in, particularly men, come in their first day of training. Never hit a bag before, never done anything before, but they've watched enough UFC, so they think they know how to do this.
Oh,
right?
Man.
I love that. So they would come in, and the first thing they're trying to do is hit the bag.
Oof.
They hit it, they're fine. They don't hit it hard at first, but they start seeing, because some of us will be over there kicking the bag, and we're like, you just hear the thud of us kicking the bag, and you're just all of a sudden they're like, I want to do that. They go over there and they try to kick the bag. And I love watching them do it. Not one, knowing how to kick, but then two, not realizing that those bags suck. Every time you kick a bag, you are hurting yourself. You are deadening the nerves in your leg. And I would watch them do it, and I would watch this expression on their face as they try not to show the pain they are in as they do it, and going, rookie.
When I was in college playing college football, I came back over the holidays and they had some alumni. I went and helped out in the wrestling room in my old high school. And at this point, by the way, I'm like 18. I'm very much in college football, like very good in shape. And I was drilling with one of the coaches, and he took me down and gave me a good deep double leg, and he put me on my back and said, "Nope, I'm done. I'm good. No, we're good." I didn't plan on getting taken down today. That's not how I planned on day to go. Now my back hurts. I don't want this anymore.
But I can see Ronda being really good at wrestling because she's again, I think a lot of people got a misconception about Ronda Rousey, and as somebody who's followed her career almost since the beginning, she is so dedicated to again, you saying she's not good on the mic right now. Hopefully she'll get used to that, but she's never been that good. She's never been that person. That's never been Ronda. Yeah. But she is always, when it comes to the physicality of things, she's into that. She'll drill, she'll train. Like, her issues with her striking were never a lack of her ability or her not being trained. It was her coach sucked, which I still get mad at Edmund for.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about her so far, and that's something I've noticed about UFC guys or ex-fighters when they come over, for example, a Ken Shamrock. It was tough for him because what you're told in a fight is that you never show how it affects you. You try to be stoic, but the entire art of wrestling is you got to show to the crowd what's happening. You got to tell that story with your body and with your face. And Ronda's been able to not just be open to doing that, she's doing it in a way that people are really sucked in. And part of it is, yes, the name of her coming in. But part of it is just that she's damn good at it.
Yeah, I think she's also I think she might be finding a freedom in being able to sell and express herself as well, physically.
Well, it's also interesting because they do like the WWE like 24s where they'll take you behind the scenes of matches and stuff. And as she came out of the ring at WrestleMania, she's hugging all the other women on the roster, and she looks around and says, "I've never had this before." They go, "What?" He goes, "I've never had other women cheering for me."
No. So many people thought she was a bitch in UFC, and what they didn't understand was, one, no, Miesha Tate is. Like, Miesha Tate.
Miesha Tate's that bitch.
Miesha Tate was the evil person in that group, because Miesha and her people would push and prod Ronda, and Ronda didn't care. Ronda just wanted to fight.
Right.
But, like, people forget, after the end of her first fight with Liz Camouche, when she in her UFC, they hugged at the end. Like, Ronda has never been, like, she only is a bitch to other women who are bitches to her. Like, if you do not respect her, she had to find a way to be mad at you, to fight you. that's what she had to do, because some people, she was like, she's too nice. No, I don't care. Like, after the fight, so going back to her first fight, Liz Camus almost took her out, got on her back, and tried to get her rear naked. But Ronda kept pushing her arm up so Liz couldn't get the arm under her chin. So Liz's arm went into her mouth, and so like her arm was like grating against her Ronda's teeth. So after the fight, in the post fight interview, she was like, Ronda's like, oh, I'm so sorry about that. I wasn't trying to bite you. Like, she was just so apologetic to Liz because of the fight. I'm like, that's the Ronda Rousey I know. That's the one that nobody, like, she had to trick herself into being this evil, the bad person, the bad bitch, because that's what sold. But that's the other thing too. She also knew how, the reason why Ronda got ahead over every other woman. One, it was her talent. Like, let's not say that she wasn't talented as a judo player.
Right.
I think bronze medal. Like, she was, them arm bars were real. She took women.
She took those arms.
She took them arms fair and square. But she also knew how to, and she was a pretty face, but she also knew how to sell it.
Yeah.
She was selling. And that's why she's another reason why she's probably good at wrestling. She was selling those fights. She knew she had to come in there, and people thought she was evil and thought she was bad. So she would play that role as the bad person, make up a story in her head about how she hated these people, and go from there. That's what she did. And so, like, I can see her basically going, wow, I have a bunch of women now that we're like family and we cheer together. Like, people forget she didn't do like that thing that other women do where they train with most women train with other men. Ronda formed a group of like 4 or 5 women, and that was her training base. Now, that might have hurt her long run because they weren't as good as her and she needed more. But that's what she did. She brought other women in to train with her, and they were bad. When one thing happened to them, they all felt it. Like, they were like the 4 horsewomen of the UFC.
That's what they call themselves, and 3 of them are now, actually all 4 of them are signed with WWE now, including the NXT champion Shayna Baszler, who, by the way, has turned into an absolute gem. I didn't know I could love it's so, they play up the MMA-ness of her in-ring stuff. Like, she doesn't run the ropes. Like, it's like, why would my character run the ropes? Like, that's what great, just small psychology. That's just so smart.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what they, so like them being together and her doing this, I can totally see why that fits for her.
Yeah.
I can totally see it.
Well, let's talk. I promise this won't be a strictly WWE UFC podcast, though that might be fun. Let's talk about the sports that happened this week. The NBA draft occurred, and Kriss, I got to be honest, I don't watch college basketball. So a lot of these kids, it was like a who, what. I knew I wanted my Hawks to take Doncic. They did, and of course they traded him because they hate me. And I've decided that I want to announce here for the podcast, I'm no longer a Hawks fan. My new primary team is the team employing LeBron James. And I've decided that if he does end up on the Lakers, I'll deal with that when it gets there. I don't know how I'm going to reconcile that, but I'll find a way to make it make sense. But there was one notable story from the draft that made me, like, you know, stories that you kind of just cringe?
Yeah.
Mikel Bridges was a player from Villanova, and he was picked with the number 10 pick by the Philadelphia 76ers. His mother, Taina Rivers, joined him on stage, and this isn't a story of just a kid from a team in Philadelphia getting drafted by the Sixers. No. Mikel Brooks is not just played for Villanova. He's from Philly. How Philly is he? His mom works for the team. Villanova on the corner. I want to read the quote he gave after he was drafted. Just watching them, especially this year, growing up watching, going to games when I was young, it's a blessing. My mom working there, went to Villanova right around the corner, played in Wells Fargo throughout the whole year. It's truly just a blessing. I'm just a mama's boy, and her son is right around the corner again. So, like before that interview was given,
they traded him, didn't they?
They traded his sons, and yo,
like I could just everything you were saying. I'm like, why is this cringe? I'm like, oh, them son of a bitches, they traded him.
Yo, I
mean, the game's the game, son.
The game is the game, and and people are kind of like roasting the Philadelphia front office. They got a number 1 draft pick for next year out of it too. It's a trade you take. It's a trade you make. Yeah, but it just doesn't feel good. Because, I mean, it should. This is a great day for this kid. His life has changed forever. He is now officially, no one can take away from him, an NBA player.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, don't we all kind of want to get, like, you hit a certain age, you shouldn't be, maybe he needs to spread those wings, and maybe it's time for him not to be mama's boy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to spin it.
It's just, hey, man, like I said, this is what happens, man. Just, you don't really get, yeah.
Like, can't you, like, tap his shoulder, like, hey, don't get the interview. What? Don't get that. Let's talk. Come here.
Let's wait until after we
just have a conversation before you start talking to people. Because we can't have you just out here willy-nilly just telling people that, hey, I'm so happy to be here. It's the place for me. I can't imagine being anywhere else.
Now you're going somewhere else.
This is God's plan. Life comes at you fast.
Sorry. Did the Washington Nationals get rid of their coach? I mean, not the Nationals, the Capitals?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you hear about this? Oh, yeah. So the Caps, well, let's break it with some NHL news. The Caps, they won the Cup this year. Everyone's happy. And then they lowballed the coach for a 2-year extension, so he sent him out.
That is the most Washington ever. Like, there's no. I'm sorry. As a person who lives in the DMV area, I have to say, one, I was like, oh wow, the Washington Capitals, they brought a championship. Maybe the Washington Sport. I'm like, the shoe got to drop. Something's gonna happen. Like, I don't know. Maybe Dan Snyder decides he's taking the Washington racial slurs out to, I don't know, Wyoming or something like that. I don't know. Something's gonna happen. Like, where's the other shoe gonna drop? Oh, this is it. You you lose the coach that got you the championship. Okay.
I'm sorry to find out this way.
And he went to another team. He went to the Islanders.
Yeah.
The most Washington sports thing of all time.
Because it's not like he just won the Cup. He'd also been involved in like 2 presidents. Like, this has been a very good team for a very long time.
Good God. What a bunch of fucking morons. I'm sorry. I saw that on Facebook and it's just like, no, that didn't happen. People are bullshitting. That's why I was like, oh, well, that is what
that's very Washington of them. Well, very Cleveland of us all to think that maybe there's hope for LeBron to stay in Cleveland. There was the corny ass draftee who said, come on, LeBron, stay. I know you need some more pieces, which loosely translates to the team I'm going to is trash if you don't come back. So we'll see how that flows, how that goes over with the veterans in the locker room. But the story now is Kawhi Leonard. So he's become very public in saying, I want out. The difference between this, people are saying, oh, well, last year Pop was able to convince LaMarcus Aldridge to come back. The difference being now, LaMarcus Aldridge was mad because he didn't fit on that team. They found different structural ways to make him a more pressing player. Kawhi Leonard feels disrespected. He feels like the team and his teammates have said, hey, your injury isn't as bad as you say it is. Why aren't you with us? He feels slapped in the face, and no amount of Pop sit-downs are going to change that. I talked last week and said maybe the mystique of the Spurs is gone, but once you've seen someone say no publicly and loudly to Popovich, doesn't that kind of shake the idea that the Spurs are the place to be in the league? Because Tim Duncan's not walking through that door because it's 2018.
Yeah, no, you're done. Like once you turn on Pop.
Ooh, man. Like, and let's be real, Pop's a 7-year-old man who just lost his wife. Like, maybe it's time. I don't know, man. I'm looking out for Pop because it's just like, is it worth the shit? Like, is it worth to come here and beg Kawhi Leonard to come play for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, man. And it's interesting because Kawhi Leonard is going to be, rumored to be at least, a piece that could be coupled with the free agent LeBron James and also free agent Paul George. It's current NBA arms race, and you talked about it earlier how LeBron made these other cats step up their game. Similarly, the existence of the Warriors has made this league better. Everyone will tell you, oh, we want more parity. First of all, no, you don't. No, you don't. half of the finals or 75% of all finals appearances are either Boston or LA. So shut up. No one wants parity in the NBA. You want to feel like your team has a chance, but even then, you kind of want that to be a lie. What we really want in the NBA is star power, and what we've got here in star teams and teams that are going to make the marquee. And now we might have more of those than ever before. Last week, I kind of punched the holes in how good the 90s actually were, because the reason they added the handshake rules is because otherwise the Jordan Bulls would have won by 60 every game, because they're the only team with any offensive talent beyond one player. What's happened now is these teams and these players have gotten so good that it's just like it's an embarrassment of riches. And are there going to be teams like the Hawks that say, we're trying to be the Warriors East and make me physically ill by thinking about what they're doing? Of course there are. But there's also going to be whatever team has LeBron James, which is the craziest thing to say in this day and age, that one player basically guarantees you a final spot.
Yeah, look at a team like Boston, who didn't even have Mr. Flat Earther with them, and they still went. Look how far they went. They went to Eastern Conference Finals. I think people are full of shit. We don't want super teams. You had a team where there was Kobe and Shaq at the same time.
Dude, people are like, the Celtics super team wasn't the same. They won 66 games in the league, and no one else won 60. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, what do you? I don't under. It's always been these super teams. They're the only teams that matter. Nobody gives a fuck about the Toronto Raptors.
Yo, that was mean as shit, but also really true.
Let's
give a shit on the Toronto Raptors.
Remember the Charlotte Bobcats?
Ooh.
Nobody, you don't give a fuck about that. You care about the teams that actually have the talent that can actually get there, and people are always working to get that talent there.
And there's more talent than ever now.
Exactly. And so, because people go, oh yeah, the Warriors are a cheat code, blah 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 blah, but then all you got to do is bring up the draft reports on Steph Curry before he was drafted, basically saying, oh, we don't know if he can be a player, we don't know if he can play in this league and stuff like that.
When he got after he got drafted in the ankle injuries, that's how the second contract was so small for him, and they're able to build around it. It's also why he's very rich man right now.
Right. The Klay Thompson stuff. Who fucking they're thinking about Klay Thompson? This is you look at this Warrior team and people go, oh, they're a super team. It's like, okay, you have a good set shooter in Klay Thompson who can sometimes be streaky. You have Steph Curry, who was top notch, and now you added Kevin Durant. Everybody else is a really good role player. It's not a super team. It's a regular championship team. Every team that has won a championship has two top players and a bunch of role players. There's probably one really good shooter, and then a bunch of role players. That's every championship team you've ever had. You had Kobe and Shaq. You had Jordan and Pippen. You had what was it? There was Nash and Nowitzki. Always had this shit.
Never won one. It's the saddest thing.
Right, and that's the thing. Never won one, but we're always in the finals.
Yep. It's crazy. It's crazy. And you think about it, so not just how power in the league is shifted, but also the power that things outside the league have now, like shoe deals. So going into this draft, if you say what are the big names in sneakers, you would say Nike, of course. You'd say Adidas occasionally, Reebok once in a while, and you'd say Under Armour because they got Steph and not really anyone else. But in the last 2 weeks, I don't know if you've noticed this, Puma is about that life.
Yeah.
Puma got endorsements from top NBA draft picks, DeAndre Ayton, Michael Porter Jr., and including, but not limited to, Marvin Bagley III, whose name you might know from being involved in certain large sum payments to an AAU team coached by Marvin Bagley Jr., given by Nike. And when asked about this, they furiously no commented it, but it's interesting that they did take that Nike money and still get that Puma money. But what's crazier is that it's Puma money. Because if you think about basketball shoes, you don't think about Pumas. What's happened here, so I've done a little reporting, is that they got a lot of money from the Rihanna deal. The Rihanna lifestyle brand brought in more money to Puma than they thought they could do, and they reestablished their basketball division, including making Jay-Z the president of something. I'm not entirely sure. The reports are varied, but they've given him a title, and essentially, because of his position with Rock Sports, the Rock Nation, and the fact that they have at least two contracted athletes also signed to Puma to avoid any sign of impropriety. I don't know that his status is any more than a figurehead, but I got to tell you, Jay-Z's a pretty good figurehead.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're seeing people realize that you don't have to stick with what's known. So I remember somebody did a thing on how, was it like Champion or something like that? Made a comeback, and now they're selling Champion hoodies for like $75.
Yeah.
No, you mean the same Champion stuff they used to sell in like the store for like 5 for 15? Like that, like yeah, it's like you can now get out. You don't need to be stuck in only getting a Nike deal, only getting a Reebok deal. Now there's so many other things out there, and not just with the endorsements, but also just in the league itself. It's like you can go. There's so many now. If people think the Warriors have destroyed the league, no, they've saved the league, because now everybody is trying to find their combination. You always need a bad guy. You always need an enemy. If you don't have a team to beat in the league, then everybody gets stagnant, and what the fuck does it matter?
I'll say this: I am one of those people who does hate the Warriors just because it makes me frustrated to watch them be so good. But you're right. You need the bad guy. You need the villain. And what's crazy is that I was talking to someone who knows more about this kind of sneaker game stuff than I do, and was explaining to me is that these players are, the appeal isn't the coolness of Jay-Z. Jay-Z, for me and you, might be cool, not the coolest thing for an 18-year-old. The appeal of making Jay-Z the face of this brand is you telling these players that you're not just going to be a sneaker. You're not just going to be a basketball shoe. You can be a lifestyle brand. You can be a Jay-Z, a basketball. You can transcend basketball. And the idea that they're bringing this lifestyle appeal, I think that's the biggest effect on the sneaker game. Because now, if I'm a player coming to Nike and they say, well, here's going to be your signature shoe, you say, well, where's the accompanying sandal and tracksuit?
Oh yeah.
Where's the rest of it? Where's the line? Because Puma's not going to just, you know what, maybe I'm wrong and they'll drop some amazing, well-designed basketball shoes. The appeal is going to be for Puma athletes to say, come be more than a basketball player.
Oh, no. So that's the next big thing for all athletes. Because I've been watching somebody, Gary Vaynerchuk, he has I always watch some of the stuff. He does a branding. He's actually getting into, he does some sports stuff too with Vayner Sports and things like that. But he always brings on like some of these upcoming rappers and sometimes it's athletes and things like this. And what some of these younger athletes are figuring out is, I'm a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Not my team, not the sponsors, me, myself, I'm the brand. It's basically what LeVar Ball is trying to do.
But with talented players.
But with talented players and not so disgusting. Like I've watched as Gary sat down with people, they bring their fathers in, but it's the athlete speaking. What happened is Lonzo the father? Yeah, Lonzo the father.
Right? No, LeVar's the father.
LeVar.
D'Angelo's the brother who didn't get drafted this week.
Right. Like, so LeVar's the one. LeVar speaks for everybody, has his own ideas. It basically seems like he's making everybody do what he wants them to do. The real thing is when the athletes figure out they can do whatever. It's like, you can do your own Instagram. You get your own line. Forget going to these brands. Or go to Puma, a smaller brand, then launch your own line under Puma. Things like that. Exactly. That's what you're going to start seeing, where you're going to find out that these older sponsors are going to find out that they're being undercut because, again, like when athletes figure out that they can do the things that Will Smith is doing on Instagram, when you don't need anything else but yourself and a phone. And yeah, you're going to have to deal with the teams and their social media policies and things like that, and what you can and can't do and things like that. Yeah, that's going to happen. But when you fall into that line of what you can, like, it's like they're going to find out. Because there was, I think, was there a story that we did or somebody did about one of the kids? He was like I think it was a college athlete, a college basketball player, and he got in trouble because he was making money from his social media.
Yeah, it was a long snapper or punter from I forget where, but yeah, he was doing stuff on social media, and they said that he was using his athleticism to sell his profile, so he had to choose, and he chose the YouTube. It's crazy, man. And I think what's even crazier is that this Puma idea isn't stopping at just the players. So I don't know if you remember the TBT tournament. It's happening again this year, and 16 players last year who played in the TBT reached the NBA. Puma signed a deal with the tournament saying any player who competes in the TBT and makes the NBA will get a blanket endorsement contract from Puma. Puma's serious about this.
As they should be.
This is good. This is going to shake up the shoe game. Hopefully bring some sneaker prices down because I'm 32 years old and I may have started becoming a sneakerhead, and it's probably not a good place for me to be. Last bit of basketball. We covered it here, so we covered probably not enough. Sterling Brown, when he was tased and arrested by the Milwaukee Bucks, by the police officers. It's been a lot of very positive response from the Bucks community. They not just released his statement on letterhead, they released their own statement on team letterhead, decrying the position of the policing this and demanding immediate changes to the policing done in the area. There's now a lawsuit being filed by Sterling Brown. And if you want to know just how secure the police officers are in their stance and what they've done, one of the officers who is named in the lawsuit, who's the target of this lawsuit, put up on his Facebook the day of the incident, "Nice meeting Sterling Brown of the Milwaukee Bucks at work this morning, LOL, hashtag fear the deer." And if you say, oh, well, that's before he got caught, he would never, ever continue to, hold on for me 1 second. Because he then put on his Facebook, "I hope J.R. Smith double parks in Walgreens handicap parking spots when he's in Milwaukee after his brain fart in game 1. While I have joked repeatedly that LeBron should have punched J.R. Smith, those weren't jokes. He should have punched J.R. Smith. When you're already a victim, a party to a lawsuit, already about to stand very public trial for your mistreatment of someone in a Walgreens parking lot, the audacity, caucasity to post that points only to the clear structural issue that NFL players are kneeling about, right?
Yeah, it's right. At this point, they think they're untouchable. The cops think they're untouchable.
Mm-hmm. That's what they've been told.
This is not the first time, or even the second time, that cops have brutalized now a rich, famous black person, particularly an athlete. Now, you never forget, they kept an NBA player out of a playoff game. It might have cost.
Cost him half the season.
Cost him because they broke his legs. Yeah. So I just par for the course, unfortunately. And I'm still waiting to see them get off some kind of way.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing is that, this has been very strong. And the thing about it is, it's so funny because the NBA and the Milwaukee Bucks in particular here, but the NBA in general, has kind of let the athletes do what they've got to do. They say these piece, enjoy the repercussions. Meanwhile, the NFL is bending over backwards to quote unquote appease the fans, and then people feel like jackasses because Donald Trump, of course, came out and said, you're kneeling for no reason. You want pardons? Let me know what you want. NFL players wrote massive amounts of letters. I'm going to link one in the show notes, but it's Malcolm Jenkins and Kriss Long outlining why not only the question of individual pardons is insulting, but what he actually can do to effect change in social justice reform. The most insulting part about it is that people are just assuming that these athletes don't know what they're talking about. They're uneducated. They couldn't possibly have opinions that are worth, but they do. And they're able to articulate them openly and repeatedly. And no one wants to listen because they're pretending that taking a knee is about anything more than black and brown people being killed with impunity by agents of the government. And and what's funny is you watch like national polling, people are coming around because you can only be so wrong so loudly for so long. It becomes you're fighting against gravity. You're fighting real, undeniable facts.
Yeah.
And I am just, whew.
Because at some point, because when one side story keeps changing, but the other side doesn't,
it becomes real obvious who's making up what they have to just to try to stay afloat.
Right. It's like we're saying the same thing over and over again for years. You guys keep bringing up a different thing. Who's looking like the jackass? So
Precisely. Ed Werder, who blocked me on Twitter, I didn't know why. He's a bigoted bowl of porridge, and he proved it again this week when he, out of nowhere, a young woman was tweeting about an opportunity. Charlotte Wilder was tweeting out about an opportunity helping women get a sponsorship or an internship at Sports Illustrated. Ed Werder said, so I should make sure that no white men apply, right? Because when you talk about equality and fairness, that is the most egregious party in the equation, is that oft-tortured white male. He was educated by people who were smarter than me, women and men in the media, via Twitter, and his repudiation continued to be, why are we excusing men? Well, I do want to say, I want to read some of the tweets here. I just always associated SI with hiring the best, regardless of race, sex, and other factors. People were taking the time to explain it to him. Charlotte Wilder, who wrote the initial tweet, was much kinder than I would have been, and I would have just called him a bigoted bowl of porridge. But she wrote, well, unfortunately, a lot of women and people of color who are the best often get passed over during the hiring process at every publication, so it's important to make an extra effort, which I thought was a not just fair, but like super overly nice way to say that. He replied with, oh, so you're saying the rest of the industry is racist, sexist except for you. He replied to her tweet in less than 2 minutes. She wrote, can you even read? It's astounding that that's what you're taking away from these tweets. Again, being way nicer than she should be. He replies, just reading aloud what you wrote. You essentially made it clear that excluding males regardless of ability. I read the words you wrote.
Yeah. It's just...
He then said, I think it was 3 hours later, my intention was to advocate for an inclusive process. I didn't mean to offend anyone, quite the opposite. Now, this is kind of funny in the vacuum because Ed Werder is an idiot. And we know he's an idiot. He's been an idiot for a while. But he has a brief that reaches a lot of people, including people like Washington State's highest paid public employee, Mike Leach. You might say, Daniel, Deepo, how did we get to Mike Leach's story about Ed Werder? Glad you asked. I'm thinking about people with horrible opinions about things. Mike Leach tweeted out a video last Sunday of a widely refuted, easily proven to be fake video of Obama saying that the elite should rule the world. He said he was trying to spur discussion, Kriss. He said he was trying to incite debate. Just a little background, Mike Leach is an avowed Donald Trump supporter who views himself in the same vein as an outsider disruptor as our current sitting president. And he recruits black young men to play football for him. Kriss, couldn't be me. He's the highest paid state employee in that state, man. Washington State's their statement was he is we do not comment on the political beliefs of our employees. And for everyone who's always said Mike Leach is a guy who's got great ideas in the football field, how come he's never gotten a bigger job? Exhibit A. Because eventually, Leach gonna leach. And when he does, you don't want your name on it, and Washington State's got a problem. Let's stay with slightly bigoted, maybe more than slightly bigoted people in sports. The New England Patriots. We've always joked that they've had a certain penchant for certain types of receivers, but news is broken this week as they lose more and more receivers to injury and or suspension. The idea sounds like they might be reaching out to Eric Decker, noted receiver of Alabaster persuasion. And he thinks that he could be a real help there. Kriss, is this the Patriots preying on our beliefs about wide receivers and finding a market inefficiency?
Well, they definitely.
Go ahead.
They have a type.
Well, they may have a type, but like, so I've had friends whose entire steez was they liked homely girls, in their own words, because there was a market inefficiency there. So the other guys aren't trying that. Well, that's I mean, that's one way to look at that. Is this us overlooking wide receivers because they're wide receivers? Are the Patriots preying on my conception of wide receivers to build a core of receivers that work?
No.
I wanted to allow for it, though. I wanted to have the conversation. You just simply didn't know.
No. It's just
I wasn't ready for that. Not gonna lie.
because they get the same wide receiver who you forget, and then he runs the same slant play on third down every time. It's that guy. Like they have a type.
But it works.
No, it works. Hey, look, it works. Not saying it doesn't work. It's just like when the Bulls always had some white guy that could shoot threes.
His name was Steve Kerr.
That and what was it? It was Paxson before him, right?
You're right. No shit.
Oh yeah, but that was what it was. Like they replaced Paxson with Steve Kerr. You're like, oh, they got another white boy for shooting threes. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is what it is. I still can't believe they didn't go longer with the one when they had. I still can't believe it didn't turn out to be the biggest cheat code in the world, having Randy Moss and fucking Tom Brady. Because
it was for until the Super Bowl. That was the year they went undefeated. Was the Moss year?
Yeah, because it was disgusting. It was disgusting.
One day I'm gonna have a series of podcasts where I just talk about certain things in sports, and that's gonna be on the list of it's gonna be like our own mini 30 for 30s, but it's our reaction to incredible sports stories because that Moss year was the most conflicted I've ever been as a football fan because I'm a huge Randy Moss fan, but I do hate me some Tom Brady.
Because he's so disrespectful, but not like bad disrespect. It's talent disrespect. Like the motherfucker takes 2 steps off the line.
It's unfair. His talent disrespectful. Like you respect my. No, I'm not.
Put his hand up. I'm open. No, you got a guy on man to man, and there's a safety over top. I'm open. What do you know? He was open.
No, in decades of those, but you just got Moss was a thing. Like Moss was a bird.
Yeah, no, it's okay, boy. You got Moss. It's fine.
You got Moss.
Happens to all of us. I don't know if you talked about this, but the TO thing with the Hall of Fame.
It's brilliant.
Hilarious. I'm like, good for you, TO.
Well, part of me is like good for you, TO, but part of me is also sad. I'm probably gonna miss the speech. But the bigger part of me is, if someone doesn't want to be there, you don't want to force them to be there. Because if you thought he was an asshole before, like if you make him come, yeah.
Well, see, if he's smart, he'll do the speech on like Twitter or Facebook.
Oh yeah, he'll stream that shit. Yeah. Twitch.
Yeah. Give the speech while playing Madden.
Yo, we'll play with an all TO greats team.
Yo.
The 3 receivers are TO on the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Niners. But your quarterback's always Jeff Garcia. That's the downside. It was me. All right, I want to talk about 2 more stories before we get out of here. They're both still involved in the football world. One is, we'll start with the worst one. Jameis Winston. Have you heard about this?
No.
So Jameis Winston, news broke on Friday when afternoon news dumps happened that he may be suspended for 3 games or more for a violation of the conduct policy. And this is from an event that happened, I believe, in 2016, where he was accused of fondling a female Uber car driver. It was from an event that happened in Scottsdale, Arizona in March 2016. What's happened so far was the investigation the incident brought to light in 2017, and the statement that the NFL is saying that they're going to suspend him under the leak says is because of failure to disclose. He should have told the league. The status of the claim was that the young lady said that she had been groped while she and Jameis Winston were alone in the car. Jameis Winston's assertion has always been that he was never alone with her, that his friend, former Vanderbilt football player Brendan Banks, it was wow. It was Ronald Darby was the first named player. He's a cornerback for the Eagles. He had always claimed alongside Jameis Winston that Jameis was never alone with the driver and the driver must have been mistaken. The third man came forward this week. Brandon Banks, former football player at Vanderbilt, said via his attorney that Winston became intoxicated and unruly, prompting his friends to send him away in an Uber alone. What happened after that, he cannot say. Until this weekend, he had never been publicly identified as being at the scene. Now, this is bad for anyone. This is worse for a football player. This is much worse for a football player who plays quarterback as a franchise-level quarterback. This is exceptionally worse for a football player who, whether you believe he got away with or didn't get away with sexual assault in 2013, you are aware that something happened in that case. You're aware that he's being accused of stealing on repeated occasions and displaying horrible judgment when coming off of that aforementioned rape accusation, screaming, "Fuck her right in the pussy," during a television interview.
Wasn't he also the crab legs guy?
Is it the crab legs guy? Like this, it's one of those things where you're like, at a certain point, we're going to find out how much trouble you can get in as a franchise quarterback before a team has to walk away. Because if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you look at this and you look at 3, perhaps 7-game suspension, and it may not be worth the PR hit.
How many games they win last year?
I don't think it's about wins and losses now, because we're talking about having this player associated with your team.
Oh no, I know that. I'm just like even just from there, the PR hit and stuff like that. It's even like was even worth it before. But no, to go back to this, I love that the other player is basically like, I don't want that smoke. I didn't see him. I wasn't there. He was alone. Leave me the fuck out of it. More men need to do that. Don't take the hit for your friend. Nah, son, you're not going to be caught up in this shit.
Brandon Banks is currently serving 15 years in prison for being found guilty of aggravated rape himself in June 2017 for his role in the gang rape of a female Vanderbilt student in 2013.
Right, and so Darby's the one that came forward and was like, he's the one, because Banks
Darby's the one who took Winston's side and said she was never alone with her. Banks from prison is saying, I was the third man, and I was not in the front seat when that happened. Brandon said he was never in the car with the victim.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Darby that came out and said.
No. Darby always toed the Winston line. But the question, like, I can't tell you what happened in that. I can't tell you if you can suspend him for more than failure to disclose. What I can tell you is, where there's smoke, there's fire. This nigga's got a lot of smoke around him at all times.
Yo, when another convicted rapist tells you, I don't even know. Yeah, no, don't take the hit. Nah, cut your losses. Because at some point, you got to do that anyway. Right, because as a society we need that, because men who have this kind of clout think they can get away with it, and that's what's been happening with Jameis Winston from the beginning. So at some point he needs to find out that he can't.
And it's wild because we're back in that legal gray area with Jameis Winston. We're back in this place where it's a he said, she said, and you're saying the word again.
Here's the thing. If it happens enough times, I'm of the belief of, believe women, but 2, if it's constantly a thing, nobody's that unlucky.
No.
Nobody is that unlucky where you just constantly or get picked on that much where things happen. Like you said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you're constantly, because here's the thing at this point, if you're constantly putting yourself in a situation, because that's the excuse they always use for women, right? The victim blaming thing. Well, at this point, if you know that you are a target for these false allegations, why are you even putting yourself in right? If that's the case, you be proactive, because this is not just like some woman wearing a tight skirt and you're telling. No, this is you getting too drunk and getting belligerent. Maybe you stop drinking.
Yeah.
Maybe you as the man who is constantly getting falsely accused of things to take something, but the fact of the matter is you're not getting falsely accused because it's not happening. So it's all bullshit. You're doing these things. Yeah,
whatever happens next, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, not just in the court of public opinion, but kind of what the Buccaneers kind of decide they have to do. Because, look, if this is me and this is my football team, you're having meetings on Sunday about this. This is one where it may be time to cut these ties, because the question has always been, does your talent exceed the problems you bring? And I've never nothing we've seen from Jameis says that definitively it's a yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the story I never thought I'd cover. Brett Favre has been at the forefront of banning youth football in Illinois. He's explained that he wants to take this program national, saying that he's watching young men or boys, children, out there with helmets, the biggest thing on their bodies, banging into each other. He said that his experience with concussions makes him more acutely aware of the damage that can be done, and that there's really no reason for someone to play tackle football before the age of 14. I was a late comer to tackle football. My dad and mother kept me out of playing organized football until I was the tender age of 10. So I was one of the late people where I grew up to play football. I think it's very interesting because the concern here is for developing brains, and people point to the concussions, but something I always point out is that those subconcussive hits are also just as damaging. They say that an offensive lineman during a game, each interaction is like a car crash on the brain. It is a very serious thing, and I think that the messenger being Favre makes it going to be hard for people who are football, diehards and traditionalists hard to ignore, right? Because we watched Brett Favre with that quote-unquote amazing games played streak when probably should have missed a couple for concussions.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make the story, does it make the idea resonate more coming from the old Wrangler jeans ball player, just a kid out there?
And I honestly, I'm not a Brett Favre fan, but good on him for this because he's right. I mean, he's right. It's like, why a kid, like, and he's right and parents are wrong.
But it's interesting because you see parents, like even Mike Ditka, who I think my things about Ditka, but he said, I wouldn't let my kids play football today. Favre's quote via the Daily Mail was, the body, the brain, the skull is not developed in your teens in single digits. I cringe. I see these little kids get tackled and the helmet's bigger than everything else in the kid combined. It looks like they're going to get break in half. It's interesting because, it's something that you think of having played football as long as I did. You're obviously concerned about it. And he said that Favre, he hasn't had the full effects of CTE. He said signs are starting. He says, I was always great with names and faces, no matter how long it had been since I'd seen somebody. But that's not the case anymore. Sometimes I'll be talking and it's like I know what I want to say. It's right there, but I can't get together in my head and make it come out of my mouth. For someone whose image and definitive trait was Iron Man, never quit, manly man kind of guy, this is illuminating to see in 2018 that people can be honest about the fears they have about playing this sport.
Yeah. I mean, it's time that people listen. The evidence is there, the facts are there, but we live in people don't want to believe that. They want to, at this point, people say fiction is greater than fact, but it's also people's own perceptions are greater than fact. People want to believe what they want to, I play football, and look at me. It's like, yeah, you're an asshole. But not only that, just because it didn't happen to you doesn't mean it's real. Like, right. If I go through a radiation zone, but somehow I come out and I don't have radiation, that doesn't mean that anybody can go through a radiation zone and come out healthy.
That means you got lucky shit.
Right. It doesn't mean I can, like, shoot, I used to have a really great metabolism. I could eat anything I want. Now I'm older. I can't do that shit because I get fat. So it's like, yo, like, stop being a fucking caveman and fucking listen to the evidence and the facts that are out there, and stop using your small worldview as a larger issue going on here and realize what's going on. You're about to fuck over your kids. And what? Let's be honest here. Most parents are putting their kids out there to do that shit that do not see the dangers aren't doing it for their kid.
Right.
Your kid's not playing. Your kid's not under 10 playing football because they want to put a helmet and pads on and play football.
And even if they are, guess what? We don't let children decide what they're going to have for dinner or wear on their bodies. Why would you let them decide, like, I want to play football? Well, the kid said he wanted to play. Why is the kid in charge all of a sudden?
Kids, I mean, you give a kid a cardboard box and they're happy for like 10 years.
Who put the baby in charge?
Right. It's like, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, my son really wanted, and I didn't want to tell him no. You tell your son no every time.
All the time.
All the time. But now you can't do it because it's not about the kid. It's about you. You want them to play. That's what it is. It's about the parent being selfish. Stop being a selfish prick. See, that is the appropriate use of prick, not proud.
And we've come full circle on our first two podcasts today. Kriss, man, tell everyone where they can find you, even though they probably already know.
I'm on Twitter. Insanity Report. Also, you can find me on just everything we do here at the MTR Network. Just go to MTR Network. So I'm always around.
Oh, man, I am DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire Internet Network at the Internet Network. That was our show. This is our outro. See you guys at number 99.
It's time! It's time! It's Vader!